Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Smithgall, the unelected mayor of Atheistville, and this is today's Mic Drop. Now, a while back, I got a comment that perfectly captures one of the most persistent myths about atheism. A member of the community that I will call Hope, she and I had a lovely and friendly exchange, but during the discussion about morals, she said this: the issue is still sin. How can you want a godless society and yet you still want to blame God for the issues? If God were eradicated from society tomorrow, do you genuinely believe that pure, innocent babies would be born into a safer world? Now, I responded, but their question deserves a deeper dive because it touches on something fundamental: the relationship between morality and the concept of sin. Today, I want to dismantle the idea that our moral compass and this very definition of good comes from God or Scripture. And the evidence from biology and anthropology to our own moral progress tells us a very different story. Religion didn't invent morality, it hijacked it. Let's start with Hope's core premise that without God, children wouldn't be safe. But here's the uncomfortable truth: children haven't been particularly safe with God either. The Catholic Church has faced decades of abuse scandals, with thousands of priests accused of sexual abuse in the United States alone. I mean, it's over 3,000 cases. That's the scale of the crisis. And the Southern Baptist Convention, they're not free either. They're America's largest Protestant denomination, and they've had well over 700 cases of the same thing, of child abuse. What makes these scandals particularly damning isn't just the abuse, it's the institutional response. These organizations claiming divine moral authority repeatedly move the predators from post to post. They prioritize protecting their reputation over protecting children, and they silence the victims. If the argument is that religion makes children safer, then I have to ask, how much worse could a godless society possibly be? And this is an indictment of all believers, right? Most religious people are horrified by these scandals, but it does reveal something crucial. Religious institutions don't have a monopoly on moral behavior. In fact, when they claim divine authority, they often become less accountable, not more. In my response to that person, I made a point that it always gets a lot of attention, and I believe I heard it originally from Penn Jillette. I said that I commit all the atrocities I want to commit, and that number is 0. Now, that isn't a boast, it's an observation about the nature of morality itself. When someone says the Bible is the thing that's keeping them from harming others, they're revealing something troubling about their moral foundation. They're saying the restraint comes not from empathy or genuine care from others, but from fear of punishment, either earthly or eternal. By their own admission, they're one book away from being dangerous. That's not particularly comforting. This fear-based morality is fundamentally different from empathy-based morality. Fear asks, what will happen to me if I do this? Empathy asks, how will this affect others? One is a self-interested calculation. The other is genuine moral consideration. Most people, religious or not, operate primarily on empathy. They don't hurt others because they understand suffering, not because they're afraid of hell. They help strangers, not because Scripture commands it, but because they recognize the shared humanity. The book isn't what makes them moral. They were already compassionate human beings. That brings us to the evolutionary foundation of morality. And this is a crucial question. If morality doesn't come from God, then where does it come from? And the answer lies in our evolutionary history, and it's far more fascinating than any religious origin story. Cooperation and reciprocity appear throughout the animal kingdom. Primates will share food and comfort distressed members of their group. Dolphins rescue injured companions. Even rats will free other rats from cages, choosing to help rather than claim the extra food. These behaviors suggest that the foundation of morality, which is empathy, fairness, reciprocity, evolved as survival strategies long before humans developed language, let alone scripture. And human societies took these basic impulses and built complex moral systems around them. Archaeological evidence shows that hunter-gatherer groups enforced fairness, punished freeloaders, and cared for the vulnerable thousands of years before organized religions appeared. These societies didn't need divine command to understand that cooperation was essential for survival. The evolutionary perspective explains something that religious morality cannot, is that we have moral intuitions that sometimes contradict what we're taught. Why do children as young as 3 show preference for fairness even when no one is watching? Why do people across cultures, regardless of religion, tend to help others in emergencies? Because these behaviors are part of our cognitive inheritance. They evolved because they helped our ancestors survive and thrive in groups. And here's where the religious argument completely falls apart. Let's look at when scripture lags behind conscience. If morality truly came from unchanging divine command, we'd expect religious texts to represent the pinnacle of moral thinking. Instead, we find the opposite. Holy books often enshrine practices now recognized as deeply immoral: slavery, genocide, the subjugation of women, the execution of people for victimless crimes. The Bible explicitly endorses slavery, giving detailed instructions on how to treat different types of slaves. It commands the complete destruction of entire peoples, including children. It treats women as property, first subject to their father and then to their husband. These aren't metaphors or cultural misunderstandings. They're clear moral prescriptions that modern believers now reject. What's telling is how moral progress has worked in practice. It wasn't religious leaders reading scripture that more carefully that ended slavery. It was abolitionists using reason and empathy to argue that human bondage was just wrong, often in direct opposition to religious authorities who defended slavery using biblical passages. It wasn't a deeper theological study that gave women equal rights. It was secular philosophers and activists who argued human dignity regardless of gender. And this pattern persists and repeats throughout history. Moral progress comes not from discovering new religious truths, but from humans using reason and empathy to expand our circle of moral considerations. All right, quick pause just for a moment. If you haven't subscribed yet, I would love to have you join the community here at Atheistville, and also leave us a comment. Your comments really do help shape the conversation, and they let us know what topics you enjoy. And I promise you, even if we respectfully disagree, I will respond to you because I enjoy the opportunity to learn different perspectives. Again, even if I disagree with them, I do want to understand where you're coming from. And one final thing, reach back to your believer days and become an evangelist for the show. Tell someone else that you know that what we're doing. Maybe someone else would like to hear this information as well, or they would enjoy this type of perspective. I'm trying to grow the show, and more recommendations from people just like you really do help. All right, let's get back to it. Perhaps the strongest evidence against religious monopoly on morality comes from looking at the world itself. The vast majority of humans aren't Christians. Yet they display the same basic moral behaviors. They care for children. They help strangers. They condemn unprovoked violence. They value fairness and honesty. Secular countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, they consistently rank highest on measures of social trust, happiness, and safety. These societies have largely moved beyond religious governance, yet they have lower crime rates. They have better treatment of minorities. They have a stronger social safety nets than many of the highly religious countries, including my own. For example, according to the World Happiness Report, the top 5 happiest countries are routinely secular or have very low church attendance. Conversely, highly religious countries often score low on quality of life metrics. Within the United States, studies consistently show that less religious states are safer, they're healthier, they have lower rates of violent crime, lower teen pregnancy, and less divorce. The trend is very clear. This doesn't mean that religious people are bad, obviously, because correlation doesn't equal causation. But it does mean that secular societies aren't collapsing into moral chaos as critics would often predict. In fact, research by sociologist Phil Zuckerman shows that secular populations tend to be as least as altruistic, if not more so, than highly religious populations when looking at measures like charity giving or secular causes and rates of volunteerism. The evidence is overwhelming. Morality is not dependent on belief. So, what does secular morality offer that religious morality doesn't? Accountability, for one. When humans take responsibility for moral decisions rather than deferring to divine authority, we can examine the consequences of our actions and our choices and adjust accordingly. We can study what actually reduces harm, increases well being, and promotes flourishing. Secular ethics can evolve with new knowledge. As we learn more about psychology, sociology, and human development, we can refine our approaches to justice and education and social policy. Religious moral systems, anchored to ancient texts, struggle to adapt to new understandings. Most importantly, secular morality recognizes that humans are both the source of the moral problems and its only available solution. We can't pray away child abuse or genocide. We have to build systems, change laws, and hold people accountable. That's harder than deference to a divine authority, but it's also more honest and ultimately more effective. So let me return to Hope's original question about creating a safer world for the children. The answer isn't more religion. It's better human institutions. It's evidence-based approaches to child protection, transparent accountability systems, and a commitment to prioritizing victim welfare over institutional reputation. It's recognizing that moral progress is a human project requiring human effort and human responsibility. It's an understanding that empathy and reason, not fear and obedience, are the foundations of genuine ethical behavior. When believers tell me that faith makes them moral, I want to remind them of something very important. They were already good people before they opened the book, and they'd be good people if they just closed it. Their compassion, their desire to help others, their protective instinct towards children, these aren't gifts from above. They're expressions of our shared humanity. Religion didn't invent morality, it hijacked it. And then it spent centuries telling us we were too broken to fix it ourselves. All right, so that's my 2 cents, unblessed and unfiltered. Agree or disagree, that's what I got for you today. But here's the bottom line. Morality is a human creation and not a divine gift. We don't need the fear of hell to be good. We only need empathy and reason. And the work of creating a safer world for children and for all of us isn't about praying to a higher power. It's about building better human institutions and holding them accountable. All right. Until next time, I'm Mike Smithgall, and I will catch you on the next one. Take care. Hey, I really hope you enjoyed today's show. Before you go, make sure you like and subscribe to the show and tell a friend. It really helps us grow. If you'd like more great content from us, be sure to check us out right here on YouTube. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts and check out our blog at atheistville.com. Until we talk again, remember reason and compassion go a very long way.